On May 27, 1610, the man responsible for the assassination of King Henry IV, Francois Ravaillac, was about to meet his end. But this was no simple hanging. This was justice reserved for kingslayers. He confessed proudly, declaring under torture, "I know very well he is dead. I saw the blood on my knife in the place where I hit him. But I have no regrets at all about dying, because I've done what I came to do." At Place de Grève, the traditional site for executions, Ravaillac was subjected to a final round of torture that seemed to be crafted not only to punish, but to destroy. He was stripped bare and tied down. Boiling oil, burning sulfur, molten lead, and resin were poured over his flesh, searing muscle and bone. His skin was then ripped away with red-hot pincers, each piece exposing sinew and nerves. His shattered body was then secured by 4 horses, each tied to a different limb. The executioner cracked his whip, and the horses surged. Muscles stretched to their limits, joints popped, tendons tore, but the body did not yield. Witnesses described the grisly endurance of the human frame as multiple attempts were needed to fully tear Ravaillac apart. The French crown banished his parents and forbade his entire bloodline from ever using the name. On the bitter morning of March 28, 1757, Robert-François Damiens was dragged from his cell in Paris. Shackled and bloodied, the former servant was moments away from becoming the last man in France to be executed by dismemberment. He had attempted to assassinate King Louis XV, and for this crime, the French monarchy staged one of the most gruesome spectacles in European history. His ordeal began with the boots, a crude torture device designed to shatter his legs by crushing them between boards tightened with iron wedges. Bones cracked under pressure, his screams echoed off the stone walls. But that was just the beginning. Next came the red-hot pincers. Executioners tore at his flesh, searing and peeling it away. The hand that had held the blade against the king's chest was singled out. It was drenched in burning sulfur until the skin blackened and curled. But the agony didn't relent. Molten wax, lead, and boiling oil were poured into the open wounds, a cocktail of torment that left his flesh bubbling and raw. Strapped spread eagle to 4 horses, each tied to a limb. Whips cracked. The horses surged, but his limbs didn't yield. Sinew held, bone resisted. The crowd, bloodthirsty and unflinching, watched as Sanson and his assistants were forced to intervene. They sliced through the thick tendons, softening the joints. With a sickening snap, the horses succeeded. Arms and legs were wrenched free, spattering blood into the dirt. Some say he was still breathing when the last limb was torn away. His mangled, twitching torso, some witnesses claimed he was still conscious, was burned before the roaring crowd at the Place de Grève. The Muslim traveler Ibn Battuta gave a disturbing account of a horrifying practice he witnessed during his visit to Delhi in the 1330s, execution by elephant. He recounted an execution involving men accused of plotting to assassinate the vizier. Their fate? To be turned over to elephants specially trained, not just to trample, but to dismember human beings with deliberate precision. These weren't ordinary beasts of burden. Their hooves were fitted with iron blades, razor sharp and gleaming beneath the sun. The animals had been carefully trained to obey commands from their mahouts, the drivers perched on their backs, and to carry out their grisly tasks with horrifying obedience. As Battuta described, the elephants would wrap their trunks around the condemned, toss them high into the air, then slam them to the ground with a force meant not only to injure, but to humiliate. Then came the final act. If the emperor ordered a full execution, the elephant would bring its iron-shod feet down on the victim's chest or limbs, slicing and crushing until the body was torn apart. The severed remains were flung into the crowd, a grisly rain of flesh and blood that served as both entertainment and warning. But if mercy, or mockery, was ordered, the victim would be spared at the last moment, left broken and bleeding before the emperor's gaze. Sometimes the corpse would be flayed, its skin stuffed with hay, and its meat fed to dogs, reducing a human being to little more than a cautionary display of imperial power. In August 1571, as the siege of Famagusta drew to its blood-stained end, Venetian commander Marco Antonio Bragadin, surrounded by ruin and starvation, surrendered the city to Lala Mustafa Pasha of the Ottoman Empire. After months of brutal resistance, the Christians believed the terms would be merciful. They were wrong. Mustafa feigned respect for Marcantonio's courage, but during a meeting to finalize terms, the Ottoman general turned suddenly. Accusing Marcantonio of treachery, of slaughtering Turkish prisoners and hiding munitions, Mustafa seized him. With chilling finality, he pulled a knife and sliced off Marcantonio's right ear. His guards then hacked off the left and severed his nose. Marcantonio was thrown into a prison cell, his mutilated face left to rot with infection. For 2 long weeks he lay in darkness as his wounds festered. He was dragged from his cell and paraded along the city's shattered walls, forced to carry sacks of stone on his back, a cruel mockery of his defense of the city. Later, bound to a chair, he was hoisted like a broken banner up the yardarm of the Turkish flagship, subjected to jeers and spittle from Ottoman sailors. In the main square, Marcantonio was stripped naked and tied to a column. Before a jeering crowd, the executioners began their work. With knives and hooks, they flayed him alive, inch by inch. The skin was peeled from his body as he screamed, until finally he fell silent. Marcantonio's body was quartered, his remains distributed as trophies among the Ottoman troops. His skin, stuffed with straw and sewn back together, was dressed in his Venetian uniform, mounted on an ox, and paraded through the streets of the conquered city in a grotesque mockery of military honor. A humble Jesuit lay brother, Owen was not a warrior or a preacher, but a carpenter, one with a genius for secrecy. He built dozens of priest holes, ingeniously disguised hiding places tucked into chimneys, behind walls, or beneath floorboards of English Catholic homes. These covert sanctuaries often meant the difference between life and execution for hunted Catholic clergy. In early 1606, Owen was captured at Hindlip Hall, discovered hiding alongside another Jesuit after 4 days in one of his own tiny compartments, having survived on a single apple. Owen was thrown into Marshalsea Prison, then transferred to the Tower of London, where he was subjected to unspeakable torture. His tormentors used the Topcliffe rack, suspending him from iron gauntlets with his body dangling. Already suffering from a painful hernia, the stress forced his intestines outward. To contain the bulge, the torturers strapped a metal plate to his stomach, but when he was later transferred to the more powerful windlass rack, the pressure became fatal. The plate sliced into his hernia, causing internal injury so severe it likely killed him. Despite the excruciating agony, Nicholas Owen never spoke a word. He revealed no names, no secrets, no betrayals.